I love filming in this room because I don't know if it's like the size of it or the way it's set up. If I place myself where I'm sat, I don't need to tidy up. I've got rubbish everywhere. Actually, you can see that pile of clothes, but do you know what I mean? That's clean washing. It's really pleasing. It's not even that messy, but like I don't have to worry about having like a pair of pants on the floor. Not that I feel like people should be offended by a pair of pants on the floor, but you know. Anyway, hello, welcome to today's video. I recently did a blog post on whether or not you can use like glass jars, like mason jars, as plant pots. And at first I was like, no. Well, I wasn't like no, but I was like, no, I wouldn't. But actually, in an effort to reduce, reuse, recycle, reusing glass jars is quite a good thing because a lot of things come in glass jars. So it's an easy thing. You like, not only are you reducing the demand for plant pots, so like reducing the amount of stuff we need, we are reusing something that can be recycled. So all three. But there are some like not concerns, but like issues with glass jars. But there are some like pros to having them. The biggest one being that they're free. The ones I like to use are peanut butter jars. The only issue is cleaning peanut butter jars is a pain, but they're cheap. They're like a big peanut butter thing, about £3, maybe a little bit less. But you get peanut butter for that as well. Like you wouldn't, if you got a plant pot that big for £2, you wouldn't get free peanut butter with it. Just seems sensible. I'm squinting in the sun. So yeah, they're basically, I mean, they're not free because you have to buy the thing, but you know what I mean? You were buying the thing anyway, so you may as well use it. Another great thing about glass jars is if, like me, you tend to be a bit flighty and like changeable when it comes to plant care, it doesn't matter what you plant your plants in. You can do them in soil, you can do them in leca, you can do them in water. It doesn't matter, the glass will hold it all. Things like leca, you can end up like throwing a lot of money at it before you realise it wasn't really for you. So if you just use glass jars, I just use like a glass jar as it is. I don't drill holes in them or anything, and it works fine. Because if you like want to tip it out to like flush, because that's what the holes are for, it's just for flushing with leca, you can just like hold your hand over the top, tip it out. Just really struggling with words today. Basically you can flush them because they're quite small, so you can get your hand over it and yeah. Another thing you could do if you had like a big mason jar is you could make it into a little terrarium, and if you can't be arsed with the whole leca and then some sort of membrane and then soil, you can just put a whole plant in there if you have a big enough jar and a small enough plant. Something like a Fittonia would do really well. So you could get like a really cute little cash pot to put it in, and then I know it's cash pot, but I really hate saying that because it should be cash pot because we say pot. You don't say a plant pot. So yeah, just put a whole thing in. You've got like a little terrarium, keep your Fittonia nice and happy, and a bit of humidity without a humidifier, and it's just nice. So I should have like just read the blog article to you. That would have made like more sense, but I was gonna say boring, but that would suggest this wasn't going to be boring, so who knows. Another great thing about using glass jars is you can see the roots, which is nice. Especially if you're like propagating or are just interested, you can see everything right there. Now there is an issue with algae, and I've also written a blog post on algae, and as somebody that's lived with an aquarium for a very long time, algae is something you have to manage. You can't stop it. There's nothing you can put in with it, like chemicals or anything, that'll kill the algae and not the plant reliably. So that is one consideration with, that should have gone in the cons. But algae won't hurt plants, it just looks a bit grim. If you've got soil, you wouldn't notice. But yeah, so you can see the roots, and that's good because one, you can see if it's getting root bound. Now, with glass jars, one of the cons is, right, the plant pot is shaped like this. Oh my god, look at that. All right, mate. Are you still starting your vine? Oh, it's just starting at the bottom again. Tiny little leaf there, if you can see. There. That's so cute. Right, so the plant pot is shaped like that. Not all plant pots are, and glass jars aren't. I don't have a glass jar, but do I have a glass jar? No. A plant pot, now this is in a nursery pot, pink leaf. But if you look at the shape of this, it goes in at the top, like it's narrower at the neck, like a glass jar would be. The issue we have there is if you let it get root bound, they are a nightmare to get out. You'd have to smash the glass, which is not that, you know, that big of a deal, but also you can't use it once you've smashed it. You can recycle it, but you can't reuse it, obviously, because it's smashed. Also dangerous because glass is sharp. You can keep an eye on the roots, so you could sort of make sure it's not root bound before you shift it. You should be able to tell, like, if it's as soon as the soil becomes really compacted and you can't like manipulate it at all, that's when it becomes a problem. But you will be able to see. So as well as being able to see it for like root health, it would be good for not letting it get root bound. Something being root bound isn't that big of a deal normally. Like, plants don't die from being root bound, they die because they don't have the resources that they need, and if they're root bound, it's harder for them to get those resources, because if you water it, the water will just go straight through. There won't be enough soil for it to absorb into because the roots have displaced them. So you can just soak it, that's fine, but you kind of need to be aware of it. So root bound plants are fine if you're aware of it and you kind of accommodate their needs. So we've sort of segued onto the cons. One of the main issues that I have with glass jars is lack of drainage holes. Now, I do have an article on my website about how plant pots need drainage holes, and it's not 100% true. You can grow plants without drainage holes, but it is that bit more difficult. You have to be a lot more fastidious. You have to know how much water they're getting. You have to make sure there's not a little puddle at the bottom, and things like perch water tables become a whole big thing. If you have drainage holes at the bottom, it's just easier, a lot easier, and you need to put less effort into watering. You can just water it and go. Having it in a glass jar does make it a little bit easier because you will be able to see, and what you could do, because it was small, is if there was excess water, you could hold the soil in and tip it upside down, tip the water out. You can also see moisture in the glass, so you'll be able to see when it was dry, which would be really helpful. It really depends on the type of person that you are. I'm not the sort of person that would be like checking all my glass jars to see if they had water in the bottom. It just wouldn't. I would prefer just to use drainage holes. You could use a diamond drill bit and drill drainage holes in the bottom. I mean, if you want to, 100% do that. It's not something I'm that bothered about doing, but the other issue we have with glass jars is airflow. You can't really get airflow in, and because they narrow at the neck, air will struggle. And then if we're coupling that with it doesn't have any drainage holes, airflow might be an issue. So use a really chunky soil mix. In fact, I would be tempted. Would I be tempted to just use orchid bark? You could use a soil mix. It really depends on how much how much time you want to spend staring at your plants. If it's a lot, then go for it. But these are the issues that you would have. None of the issues with glass jars are like deal breakers, but they are issues that will crop up, and there will be people who don't have any issue with it. Like if you keep your plants under grow lights, or they have great light, and it's warm where you live, so the water can evaporate quickly, it'll probably never be an issue for you. But you'll need to be careful like in winter and stuff like that, because not only, I was about to say the water will get cold and freeze your plants. I have no idea if that's true. I don't think it is. We'll disregard that. But if you see like a collection of really cute glass jars, and I could love to put plants in there, 100% do it. You can keep use them as propagation stations, and you can keep watering them. I find propagating in water is better done in a bigger vessel, because I think it's because it depends on the kind of plant carer you are. I am very hands-off, and I like to put things in place so that my plants can kind of manage by themselves. When I'm propagating in water, what I like to do is put oxygenating weed. I use Java moss. Java moss, is that right? Yeah. in with, so I've got Java moss in with my monstera, in with my Thai, the ones that are in water, because they oxygenate the water, so I don't need to change it very often or ever. And I don't need to add an air stone. It also outcompetes algae, so I don't get a lot of algae. I get a bit on the roots, but not a lot. So adding pondweed really helps. It's Java. Why do I keep saying pondweed? Pondweed would work, but I use Java moss. But if you're using a cute little glass jar, I think that might ruin your aesthetic a bit. So yeah, if I had cute little glass jars, I would probably do soil plants or leca. I would probably do leca for props. That's what I would do. I would propagate in leca in the cute little glass jars. Plus also, if you were doing props, you would be like moving them around more, like switching plants out. And every time you switch a plant out, you can wash them out to get rid of any algae. Which you can use bleach for that, or like hydrogen peroxide and a scrubber, you know, like a dish sponge thing. I hope that was helpful. There are more pros and cons, I think. I can't remember. I only wrote the article yesterday. I'll link it below. Yeah, I'll just do that. I'll link it below. It's linked below. I should have said that at the start, then you wouldn't have even needed to watch this. Right, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.